Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
From time to time in AmSpirit Business Connections, what I will do as I go in and I work with chapters is I'll just go in there and I will, if we're working on 30-second commercials, I'll just stand up and say nothing. You have that. I'm not going to do it here now because you guys would be totally annoyed with me. But people start to get uncomfortable. You're just standing there and I don't tell them what I'm doing. I just stand there and I just 30 seconds, just let it go. And the reason I do that is because it does get uncomfortable and people kind of fidget and they'll look around like, okay, what's going on? And in their, they'll note, well, that was a long time. It's like, no, that was 30 seconds. But at the same time, they will tell me, geez, I can't get said what I need to say in 30 seconds. And my response is, well, you can. It really is a long time. You need to prepare, you need to be ready for it, but 30 seconds is quite a bit of time. And I know it's quite a bit of time because when I watch TV, 30-second commercials drive me crazy and we get lots of them. And they're able to do it, you're able to do it. Today, I have on the program Laura Templeton. She is a highly skilled speaker, a best-selling author, and expert in brand communication and client attraction. She has a book. It's called 30-Second Success, Ditch the Pitch and Start Connecting. And she has transformed the way that professionals approach networking and is, dare I say, an expert on 30-second. I don't want to call them pitches, but our 30-second messages, if you will. Laura, welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on, Frank.
Well, I guess jump in. How did you, nobody goes to college I majored in 30-second commercials, right? You have a journey. Can you quickly take us through that journey?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yes, I did the whole corporate gig for a long time. I was in 10 years, and the day my son was born, I came home, they had my baby shower at work. I came home from work, went into labor with my son, and that was the last day in corporate America. And then 2 years later, I transitioned again to having my second child and sitting there at home trying to figure out what I was going to do next. When you're a stay-at-home mom, you start to covet having adult conversations. So I started networking, and a friend of mine was telling me about direct sales and introduced me to a company at that point in time, which was amazing, an experience that I learned a lot about networking and how to network and be very effective in your communications and sales. And for those of you who are familiar with direct sales, they do a tremendous amount of training. But fast forward about 15 years in my direct sales experience, I stepped into a leadership role with one of the organizations that I had networked with for a really long time. And in that capacity, I started to notice that a lot of the people in my network were struggling with their message. When you're in a leadership role, you start to figure out how you can help the people in your group, right? And I started figuring out who I needed to bring in to speak, and I couldn't find anybody to speak about the 30-second message. And that was one of the biggest things that a lot of my members were having a problem with. They just couldn't figure out how to create that message. But I had learned over the years in my network marketing experience how to create a 30-second message. I learned from one of the top sales professionals, Brian Tracy. He teaches a very specific formula that I had taken. I had figured out how to make it work for me, and then I started teaching it to other people, and worked it out that I was teaching it to other people, how to write their 30-second message and how to deliver it well. And started coaching people on how to, number one, clarify your message. Number two, how to deliver it well. Number three, the biggest thing that they experienced was their confidence level really grew. And they were able to deliver it with a clarity, confidence, and it really took a lot of the stress out of delivering that 30-second message. And then word got out that I was teaching. other people started asking me to come and speak to their groups. And about a year later, I came home and said to my husband, I think I know what I'm going to do next. And I launched 30-Second Success. And then I launched the book, 30-Second Success, Ditch the Pitch and Start Connecting, in very early 2020. And as we know, about 3 months after that, nobody was looking at what was going on. When you're launching a book, the conversation really shifted. And yet online networking became the go-to for networking. So I was helping a lot of people make that transition to the online networking community and how to network effectively. And it's just been an amazing opportunity to work with so many people who are using networking as part of their marketing strategy.
Yeah. 30-second messaging is one of those things that everybody can see that other people need it, but they're kind of in denial for themselves. Right?
Absolutely.
Not
Absolutely.
everybody, but
Mhm.
Oh yeah, I got it. Yeah, those other people, they're horrible. I got it. And then they open their mouth and jargon comes out or whatever. Or as I've, it's as you say in your book title, the pitch comes out, right? They just can't help themselves. I'm meeting you for the first time. I don't need this pitch. I don't say that, but that's kind of going on in my mind. And if you talk to people about it, it's like, well, that's just the way I do it. It's like, well, okay, it doesn't work, that's like saying, well, I just swear a lot. It's, that's just who I am. It's like, well, that's okay, but just people don't like that. So, well, I guess, can you talk us through, and you'd mentioned this when we talked earlier, a few weeks ago, the formula that Brian Tracy has, or that you've adopted. Let's talk about your formula. I think that's why you're here. We're not here to talk about Brian.
Now, and it's a very simple formula, and a lot of people, it's a framework, right? And that's one of the things that I teach people all the time. The most important thing that you need to understand, and this is where a lot of people miss the mark, is if you do not have a deep understanding of who your ideal client is, your message is not going to be effective. So the most important thing when I work with clients is 9 times out of 10, when somebody comes to me for help, is that they don't understand the importance of identifying who that key client is. Or a lot of people are afraid to refer to it as a niche, right? They're afraid to niche themselves because they're afraid they're going to miss out.
Yep.
And that's the biggest thing that I find when I talk to people about creating your niche and identifying who it is that you absolutely love to work with day in and day out. Who's that one client that if you had 20 of them, you'd be happier than anything, and your business would be a huge success. People are so afraid to identify that one specific person because they're afraid that they're going to miss out on other people. But what I find when we go down the avenue of understanding who your ideal client is, number one, it helps you to really tailor your message to that ideal client. But number two, it actually helps you to attract people who are very similar to them and need your services just as much. But now your message has gotten to be very clear, very concise, and you can deliver it with confidence so that you're attracting the right people to you. So understanding who your ideal client is that very first step in creating a message that speaks to them. Understanding the emotional drivers that keep them up at night. What's keeping them awake? Understanding the emotional connection that you have that you can help them overcome the struggle. So the formula that I teach is very simple. It's one that's been around for a very long time, and a lot of people are very used to like understanding the framework. It's used in everyday commercial. You mentioned the 30-second commercial. It's used in marketing. It's marketing 101. It's what's been taught for years in marketing. It's what's the pain or problem that your ideal client is struggling with? How do you solve it? Now, I talk about how you solve it, but not how you in particular solve it. It's not the how or the modality that you use. It's more about the resolution, right? How do they feel once you've helped them overcome what they're struggling with, right? What is the resolution that you offer to them? And then what's your call to action? What do you want them to do once they know who you are and that you can help them? And then your name and your company. And I always say, one of the things I really focus on is helping people understand the importance of saving your name and your company for last. And there's a reason behind that. And the reason is it's all about grabbing people's attention from the very beginning of what you have to say and what you have to share. Right. So if you start your 30-second message with, "Hi, I'm Laura Templeton from 30 Second Success," and somebody else has already heard what about 30-second success, they're going to go, "Oh, I know what she does. I don't need to listen to her." Right. Or for instance, if I said, "I'm Laura Templeton from Edward Jones," "Oh, she's a financial advisor. I don't need to listen to her." But if you start with a very, like a very intentional statement or a question or a story from the very beginning that gets people to lean in, and you grab their attention from the very beginning and save your name and company for last, then you've got people leaning in and wanting to hear what you have to say. So there's a very intentional way of framing what you're sharing with your audience. And it's very powerful and impactful when you follow that formula. And that's what I teach in my book. I teach it in workshops, when I'm doing different programs, and I have a couple courses that teach the same thing. It's understanding that methodology behind it.
I would imagine that the toughest thing that you have to deal with is getting people to niche down.
Yes.
And I'm just speaking from my own experience. I worked for a large firm. I was a tax consultant. And then I left and went off on my own. And well, what kind of law do you want to practice? I don't know. I want clients that have money. I mean, got money, you need a divorce, I'll do it. Right. Got a watch, need a wallet, and I was scared to death, to your point, of missing something. And I ultimately stumbled into the niche that I wanted to be from practicing law. I was helping people buy and sell businesses, and probably would have got there quicker and been more successful that much quicker as well, if I would have just really kind of thought about it and taken the time. I don't know if people do take the time.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
go ahead.
Sorry about that, Frank.
No,
And
I'm
to your
interviewing you. I
point-
talk all the time. Sorry.
But to your point, you gave a beautiful example of how long it took you to figure out what your niche was, and you realized how much you missed out on. So think about, the other people that, are afraid to create that niche. What happens is your network doesn't know how to refer you.
Yeah.
If they don't know who to connect you with. So when you can define your niche and tell people, this is who I'm looking to meet, they know who to start looking for to help you. So your 30-second message is not about connecting with your ideal clients that are in the room. It's about helping the people in the room think beyond the room. It's about getting them to think beyond themselves and to see who they know, like to start thinking. I love encouraging people to start their 30-second message with a "who do you know" question. Right? I start a lot of times, "Who do you know that refuses to go to networking events because they don't want to have to do a 30-second message?" Right? Getting people to think beyond themselves. Because number one, if I said, "Who do you know that who doesn't want to go to networking events because they hate doing their 30-second message?" Either hey, it's me, or B, yeah, I have friends that won't come with me because of that.
Right.
Right. So when you start with a "who do you know" question or a very strong statement, again, it helps your audience understand and realize who they can connect you with. So creating, really figuring out who that avatar is, that niche, helps you to then be very specific in all of your brand communications. It goes beyond your 30-second message. It goes into everything that you're creating, your website content, your blog, your social media, any kind of posts that you're putting out there, any kind of marketing materials that you're creating, even your brand visuals. It communicates, everything focuses on understanding who your niche is and how you serve them.
Do you find that people get circular from time to time? Like, who do you know who needs a financial advisor? I mean, no, that doesn't, you're using the term you're trying to describe to create your message, whereas it should be, who do you know who feels like they'll never be able to retire? I mean, to me, that's one is immensely more powerful than the other. But yet I see people say, who do you know who needs a realtor? It's like, okay, yeah, that's, so it's not just the who do you know, it's really what follows the who do you know that's the powerful part of it.
Right. Again, it comes back to that niche, understanding who it is that you are serving. Right? Who do you know that struggles with, what is that struggle that they're having? It's the pain or problem that they're struggling with. It's not their title per se. It's what's the pain or problem that they're struggling with. Right. That's where the who do you know comes in. Once you identify who your ideal client is, it's what are they struggling with that you want to open your message with? What is that struggle, the pain or problem that they're struggling with?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you can't identify what the pain or problem is if you're not 100% sure of who your ideal client is.
Yeah. Well, people need to put the work in. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you're on the program because, and I know a lot of people that listen and they'll hear this. But I tell people that this takes work. This takes work. Obviously, you have a business that's totally surrounding this. And I think that's where people fall down. It's like, okay, yeah, next week I'll do it. Right. And then they don't think about it until they're standing up or that networking event. And in the moment, it's like, I know Frank or Laura told me to do something. I'm not ready. I will be next time. And next time never comes because they keep kicking that can down the street. And they need to put the work in.
Well, and that's what I teach people all the time. Make sure that you have one really good 30-second message that you can say it without thinking about it. Right. That takes practice.
Yeah.
That takes actually writing it out. And when you have a 30-second message that you can say off the top of your head, it makes it a lot easier when you go to networking events and it's your turn, right? You don't have to think about what you're going to say. You don't have to think, you're not distracted. You're able to listen to what everybody else is saying. Now you become more engaged. You become more interactive with the people around you. You're able to listen to what the other person has to share. Right. So there's more opportunity for you to network because you're listening rather than sitting there worrying about what you're going to say. I used to have a woman that I loved her dearly. And every time we would go to a networking event, she would be sitting there feverishly writing what she was going to say. And then she'd stand up and try and read it from a piece of paper and it would come out and it would sound messy. And she'd be like, I don't understand why I don't. Like, Debbie, I've written a number of commercials for you. And every time we come to a networking event, you're always trying to figure out what you're going to say. So I said, do me a favor. Just take your 30-second message that we already wrote down for you. She goes, but I already shared that once. I said, trust me, if you start saying the same thing every single week, because it was a weekly networking event, I said, if you start saying the same thing each and every week, people are going to finally understand exactly what it is that you do. It's going to start sinking into their brain like, oh, yeah, Debbie does the solar. Debbie does solar. Debbie does solar. Right? Instead of bouncing around from the different services that your company offers. And sure enough, she started, I said, just promise me. I said, for the next month, every week, after like the third week, people started coming up to her and saying, finally understand what it is that you do.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't confusing them by sharing something different every time. There was another woman that I absolutely love, and she was amazing. And I wrote commercials for her, and she was one of my very early clients. Wrote commercials for her. She was a feng shui consultant, and every time, like they're very intuitive, right? So we wound up. I would write commercials for her. She'd love them. They would be great. I'd get a call within a few days. Not feeling it. Doesn't feel right. Like, oh my gosh, you're killing me.
Right.
So finally, what I realized that it wasn't the fact, and different people are different, right? People are very different on what they can share and how their brains work. So I discovered that through working with her that she's a storyteller. And she's like, I said to her, okay, fine. I'm going to teach you how to tell your 30-second message using your stories. She goes, I can't tell a story in 30 seconds. To your point about the 30
Yeah.
second thing, I'm like,
Yes, you can.
yes, you can. Yes, you can. And I
Yes.
taught her how to use her business stories. Again, hitting on what was the pain or problem? How did she resolve it? Like, what was the solution? Like, how did it feel for that
Right.
client once they were done? And then what's the call to action and who you are? The first time she did that, and she stood up in this networking event of women, there was about 40 women or so that we've networked with for a really long time. First, she stood up and did that 30-second message. So powerful. The women in the room started clapping for her. And from that moment on, she was able to really engage because she was able to tell it like a story. So it depends because, but every time, like her call to action, the resolution was very similar. How she got people to where they needed to be, and that call to action was the same. The who she is, this is the thing, but yet the pain, the pain and problem
Yeah.
varied from week to week, and yet the rest of the message was consistent.
Yeah. It's back to what I said. It's like you got to put the work in. And I will tell people similar things. Listen, you can tell a story. No, you can get it done. And in their mind, it's like, well, he's my brother-in-law. Well, not really my brother. It's like, no, you don't. None of that stuff matters, right? It doesn't matter. But if you put the work in and you write it out, 30 seconds is roughly 75 words, give or take, depending upon the length of the words and how quickly you talk. And so you can just kind of massage it down and practice and be ready.
I literally used to write mine out, and I would keep it in the car when I would practice when I was driving somewhere. And I would say it over and over and over till I got to an event. So I didn't have to think about it once I got there. And it just became, that, and then you can get playful with it, right? So then you can start to get creative and start like playing off other people in the room, which people absolutely love. Like, I could talk about the photographer in the room just mentioned X. Well, if your 30-second message isn't on point, how do you know what photographs you need for your portfolio or your website?
Right.
Right. They have to be cohesive. It's like, oh, I get it. So being able to play off other people in the room becomes very powerful when you have a clear, concise message that is engaging and is really kind of threaded through your personality. That's where the confidence comes in when you deliver it week after week, and it starts to really feel like it feels right.
Man.
Sometimes people have a message that just doesn't speak to their personality. So you have to bring the emotion into it. Right? How do you feel when you're working with clients? What are you delivering for them? The emotion has to be there. You have to create emotional connection with what you're sharing with the world. Because if you don't create an emotional connection, it's not gonna land right.
Right. Well, I think that's where stories become really powerful, because unless you're totally making them up, you own them. You had that experience. You know the pain or pleasure, the emotion behind it. And I think with stories, we have so many.
Mm-hmm.
The solar person, I mean, she could say the same thing with 6 different stories, maybe all a little bit different, and then feel like, hey, I'm not saying the same thing over and over again, but still saying the same thing over and over again. So let's shift gears here. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your business. Obviously, you have the book. We know you work with groups. Just how it all works. Do you have online things that people can tap into? And obviously, how people can get a hold of you would be helpful as well.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you asking me that. And again, I appreciate you inviting me onto Networking RX. This is always, I love the opportunity to connect with people. And yes, for your audience, 30secondsuccess.com is the easiest way to connect with me. I am branded 30secondsuccess everywhere on all of the social media platforms. 30 Second Success, and it's the number 30 and then spell out the word second and success. Easiest way to connect with me everywhere. All of my social media is that way. And then as I do have I have a couple courses online, and I have 2 books. My first book was 30 Second Success, Ditch the Pitch and Start Connecting. And then my second book is that first year, what I wish I had known, which is an anthology. So I'm a contributing author to that. So they're both best-selling books. Both of them are available on Amazon. And so really proud to be part of that collaboration with for first year entrepreneurs, women in entrepreneurship. And then my courses are online as well. So finding your ideal client is the first one. The second one is crafting your 30-second message. And then the third one is maximize your networking. So all of them work cohesively, but you can either bundle them or them up separately. So it's a lot of fun too. And they're available on my website. And as far as like workshops and things like that, I love doing workshops. I gotten back into doing some live workshops recently, around brand communications, and also about using ChatGPT to leverage your brand communications and increase your client attraction. So that's been a lot of fun for me. I love interacting with people on that one-on-one in the workshops and on the daily basis. So it's a lot of fun for that. I am going to be launching very shortly another ChatGPT program. I'm finishing up a 6-week beta right now. So launching the new one from the feedback from that group in the next couple weeks. So if you get on my email list, you'll get the information about that coming up shortly.
So they can go to 30secondsuccess.com and get on your list, I assume.
Yeah.
And I do have a list of her social media. It's, linkedin.com/in/30 Second Success. YouTube, same thing. Facebook, same thing. Whatever else is coming out, just 30 Second Success. She's all over it. Laura, thank you very much for being here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Frank. It's been a pleasure to spend time with you again, and I look forward to connecting again real soon.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.